What's up? It's Scott to start a therapy practice. You can see it right there on my whiteboard. Left is right, right is left. How you doing? I had poor timing today, so my family's up there eating dinner upstairs, and I'm here talking to you, but I really am glad to be here talking to you. I can eat later. It's no big deal. So, how are you doing? I had a big day today. Went to a Medicaid meeting about audits. Very exciting. Not really. But it was informative because things are changing here in our state with Medicaid, and I wanted to share with you some takeaways that I had from there. But as an introduction, my name is Scott Harmon. I am an occupational therapist, and if I look down, it's because I'm looking at the screen. I'm still here. So I just want to make sure if somebody comes in, I notice that you're here. I'm an occupational therapist, and my wife and I own 2 pediatric therapy clinics. We provide OT, PT, and speech. I have a podcast that you should check out called Start a Therapy Practice, of all things. So I give some tips over there, and I also have the opportunity to speak to other practice owners. I've learned a lot just having the podcast. It's been such a joy, a labor of love to produce the content over there. If you've not been over to startatherapypractice.com, I have some free stuff for you to check out. So I have free forms, some free tools. I just get a kick out of helping people by creating the content that I wish I would have had when I started my practice. So be sure to go over to startatherapypractice.com. I've got some notes. Oh, first, I got a new notebook today. Do I have the box? Let me see if I have the box for this, because the box was pretty cool. Here's the box right here. So this is a Wanderings notebook. Let's see if I can hold it up here. Well, it would help if I did this. I got it. Don't worry. Wanderings. So it's basically a leather notebook, and it has this right here. I'm kind of a geek with notebooks. Got my pen in there, and it's just plain paper, but these are removable. I can take these out and put more notebooks in there. Super excited about this. I mean, obviously I've got an iPhone, but I like to just jot stuff down. The OT in me sees the connection between the brain and the pen writing on here. So my super cool notebook right there. I'm going to slide the pen in. Now I realize that I'm competing with college football. And that being said, I'll put my hat on. All right. Hog on the Hat. I'm from Arkansas. So that's our NFL team, basically. That's all we've got. But it's pretty fun to watch. They're playing tonight. I think they're playing a high school team, but, they got to start off the season with a win. So I got my hog hat on, not watching it because I want to be here with you. Go Hogs. All right, I've got some notes from my audit conference that I went to today, and then we're going to cover some thoughts on video because I actually spoke to my VA. I have a virtual assistant who helps me edit some stuff, and he just had some questions, and he wanted to start some video. He wanted to share some video with his family, so he's going to create video, and I gave him some pointers, which was pretty interesting. My VA is in the Philippines, and he speaks pretty good English, actually, and he actually speaks 3 languages, and he was kind of shy about speaking to me in English, and I was like, man, you've got great English. I only speak 1 language, and I don't even do very well with that, but he speaks 3 languages. So he wanted some pointers on creating video. So I was like, hey, I'll kind of share that information with you here in this Facebook Live post. Somebody came in. Myra. How you doing, Myra? All right, so I'm going to share some thoughts on the audit that I had today. And as people pop in here, just post a question. Tell us where you're at. Even if you're watching this after the fact, you can put a question in here and I'll answer it for you, or just tell us where you're at. That'd be cool too. All right, so in my state, Medicaid is a pretty big provider. It actually provides coverage for most of the clients that we see. And this meeting that I went to today was from the Office of Medicaid Inspector General, which sounds pretty important, doesn't it? It sounds very British. The Medicaid Inspector General. Now, actually, wasn't the general there. We didn't have to salute him. It was, I don't know what his role was, but he was the presenter. And so one interesting point that he covered was who gets audited, because our question was, well, how do we know who gets audited? I mean, not that you're not going to get a letter, but how do you choose who gets audited? So he gave some bullet points on how they determine who gets audited. And I think this is pretty generic, or it can go across state lines as far as what they're looking for. What are they picking up on that says, hey, we need to audit this person? So who gets audited? The first is new providers. So if you're a new provider in my state Medicaid system, you're probably going to get audited. And it made sense. He said the reason they want to do that is because they want you to kind of get off on the right foot. They don't want you to have billing errors or therapy errors over a long span of time. They want you to do it right from the beginning. So that kind of makes sense. I mean, you'd rather have any errors pointed out to you at the beginning of your private practice, rather than, you get 5 years down the road and you're really billing some major units and you realize, oh my goodness, we're doing this wrong, or they're going to take some money back because we're not doing it right. You don't want to have that much invested into it before you know how to do it the right way. It's always been my contention is let me know the rules and I will follow the rules. So I would rather have that audit early on. And I'll tell you about my in-house audit from the Inspector General that I had years ago. The second group that gets audited is previously audited providers. So if you've had an audit, you might get audited again. But he said in his explanation there, they're going to find some stuff. That's their job, is to find stuff that you're doing wrong. So it kind of justifies their position. So once they find some errors that you're doing wrong in your private practice and your therapy, then they're going to come back and visit you maybe in a year or so. So that's why he put that bullet point of previously audited providers get audited again. So he said that they also audit people because of complaints. Now on their website, they have a big button that says file a complaint, and you can file a complaint anonymously. And he said they don't like anonymous complaints, but they do follow up on them. Here comes my little dog. So if you hear her collar jingling, that's what it is. They do follow up on complaints that are anonymous. So that's another way to get audited. And he said he did realize that competitors might turn you in a complaint for you to be audited. He realizes that happens. Some disgruntled competitors, you might steal some clients from them. Told you my dog's in here. Or you might steal some of their therapists, and they might be mad. So they're going to audit, they're going to complain and then get you audited. Not very nice. Don't do that. All right, the next group who gets audited, he just said previously unidentified providers. I might have to let my dog out here in just a minute. Let me open the doggy door. Crazy dog. All right, I open the doggy door. If she continues to bark, we'll have to expel her. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. But one thing he mentions was that providers get audited because of data analytics. He said this is about 90% of the reason that you're going to get audited. It's basically an algorithm that they're looking at. It's data. So they're looking at data. So one of the things that might pop up on that is, are you billing 13 hours of treatment a day every day? That might be a red flag. Or are you seeing back-to-back therapy, no time in between? So that's some data that might tip them off and say, hey, we might want to look at these people here. So think about different red flags that might bring you up in their data analytics and their algorithm. So they're running some machine learning over there to see if they want to audit you. What's up, Tony? How you doing? Thanks for the shout out in the group. I appreciate that, my man. All right. Another point he made was, I brought it up actually. I kind of poked the hornet's nest here. So in our state, and this holds for any insurance, they're going to have a manual. In our state Medicaid, there's a Medicaid manual for therapy providers. So I brought up the fact that the auditing agency that they outsource to sometimes brings up something that's outside of the manual. And I said, how do we have any recourse here? And he said, well, you can appeal that. There is an appeal process. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. We appealed it and it worked out fine. But my point, and I told him this, is that there's so many rules to comply with. Why do we have to comply with rules that are not in the manual? They're just kind of making it up. Of course, he was a lawyer, or is a lawyer. So he said, well, there's some gray area in this Medicaid manual. So it depends on how they interpret in between the lines. And everybody was like, ah. So they brought up a point in our state was evaluations that are done in my practice or any private practice, and then that child goes to public school on an IEP. And this is a federal rule. Evaluations are good for 3 years. But in the state where I live, if an evaluation is done at a private clinic and the therapist begins to see them in the public school, that evaluation is only good for 1 year because it was done in a private clinic. I mean, it's the same tests, same rules that we have to go by in scoring those tests, but it's only good for 1 year. So the public school has to reevaluate that child in 1 year. And there were some people out of compliance here. A funny story here. I was reading the screen here. A funny story here is when I went in to sit in at this conference, there's probably 60, 70 people there. So I just pick a table at random. I sat down to this table with two ladies, and they're the special educators at the school in our town. We see kids in that school sometimes, but I've never met them face to face. And so I just always ask people, whenever you go to a conference, you got to do this. Sit by somebody you don't know. I know we tend to go to a conference, especially as a private practice owner, you got to do this. We tend to go to a conference and we want to bring our friends, right? We want to bring everybody from our clinic, and we want to sit by our clinic buddies and our therapist. But if you're in private practice, conferences are a great way to network. That was one reason I was going to this, because I knew the big players were going to be here and some potential business. So I sat down at this table and I asked the ladies, hey, where are y'all from? And they said they were from my town. And I was like, well, that's a small world. So I told them, what my clinic was. And they were like, oh, now we can put a face with a name. So hopefully we'll get some business out of that. And I did some networking after the conference, just went around and talked to some people. So introduce yourself. One tip is that you got to take a business card. Everybody that I met, nobody had a business card. Even the private practice owners who were there, they didn't have a business card. That's pretty poor. They probably have business cards made up. I would hope they do. But you got to have them on you at all times. Be willing to give them out. So that's a tip for you. Meet people at these different conferences. All right, so back to the audit. So the lawyer basically said anything that's a gray area, call that agency that's doing the auditing and get some clarification on that. Well, the point was brought up, well, if we talk to two different people, we're going to get two different answers. So he said, well, get it in writing. Now, ideally, you do that, but sometimes they're not going to give that to you in writing. And we explained that to him. What if they don't give it to you in writing? He said, well, then you kind of have to do the best you can and go by the rules. He said, you can call me and I can try to help you out. So that gray area was not very satisfactory in the explanation that he brought up. All right. Going to the next page here. I had to use my old notebook, the spiral notebook. I didn't have my handy dandy leather notebook. All right. Let's see. So I took some notes. These people at this conference, it was an interesting mix. You had school districts, you had special educators, you had private practice owners. So the private practice owners are the contract therapists or the contract entity for the schools. So there's a little bit of friction there because that I picked up on, because the districts are like, sometimes our contract therapists say this, but we need them to do that. Do you have any ideas of what we can include in a contract? They're asking the Medicaid lawyer this. He didn't really have any help with that. So I actually had to create a school contract for a school. They just didn't have a contract. So I had to create one for them. But anyway, my thought going into this was, how can I be helpful to these school districts? Because I would like to get some more school business. But it seemed like the attitude of these private practice owners that were there were kind of button heads there. And I was like, what are you doing? You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So I was making the point to the two ladies at my table that we want to help out. Whatever we can do to help you out, that's the attitude I was taking with them, because that's the right attitude to have. How can you help those people that you want potential business from? Keep thinking about how you can help them. And I also gave them a business card when we were done. One thing that I thought of is they were having compliance issues with therapists checking out or giving therapy to a student in the schools, but not signing them out. And so the private practice owners were saying, look, sometimes we do group therapy and the teacher just sends them down to the therapy room. If we had to actually be physically in the room and sign them out, we have to walk to 3-4 different rooms all throughout the campus. And that's just not going to work. So what I'm going to propose is, this is easily solved with a Google Doc that you can share. You can access Google Docs on your phone. I can get on there and sign little Johnny out. And what they're wanting to do is to verify your therapy time with basically a spreadsheet or a database that they can compare. Okay, Scott got little Johnny for OT on Tuesday, and that's on the spreadsheet database, and it's also on his progress note, just to match that up. Because they told a horror story of a speech therapist who was billing 17 hours a day, school time, billing 17 hours a day. And of course, they rang her up, and she basically committed fraud and got convicted with a felony. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to be fraudulent like that. So that's going to be my suggestion, is say, hey, why don't we just create a Google Sheet? We can check out kids. We don't have to walk down the hall. You can compare and make sure that the therapist is actually doing what they said they would do. All right, enough about audits. Unless anybody has a question, I want to talk about video. Excuse me. Tony's interested in video. He's over there salivating. I can see him. So my virtual assistant, I have a VA who helps me with some video editing mostly, but podcast editing. I just can't do it all. So he's wanting to create some family videos, and he knows quite a bit about video editing. The question that he had, I see your smileys there. The question he had is, how do you prepare for your videos? So with a Facebook Live, I'm pretty new at it. So I just jump on here. I try to have notes. But I was explaining to him for my podcast, I tend to have an idea, and then I gather information about that idea kind of over time. Certainly I could do that in one day, but I like to gather it over time. So I'll create an Evernote note. I use Evernote. And then as I think about ideas for that specific subject, I'll just drop ideas in there. And so eventually I have quite a few ideas in one note, and then I'll go in there and start highlighting, all right, here's what I really want to talk about. And then I'll do one-liners, just one-line ideas, one after another, kind of like bullet points, and then expand off of those. But what I explained to him is that you have to practice that. And ideally, you practice it a number of times, and you practice it, you actually record yourself doing it, watch it, which is super painful to watch yourself on video, and have other people watch it. My wife watches a lot of my videos she watched all the videos that I created for the Academy of Private Practice. And she's just brutally honest with me. She's like, you gotta not do this. You got this little quirk. I mean, everybody has quirks that they do. Sometimes mine is hand stuff. She said, you gotta stop doing all this hand stuff. So we all have quirks or just ideas of how to say stuff better. So you have to practice that over and over again. Then you can kind of riff off of the one line bullet point. So he thought that was a good idea. But a lot of people just don't practice enough. A good book I don't have the book here in front of me, but a good book is called Steal the Show, about helping you create and give a presentation. So he really harps on practicing quite a bit in that book. But there's also some other good information. So be sure to get that book, The Steal the Show. I can't remember who it's by. The other parts of the videos, one thing I suggested for him was a lot of times I'll use two cameras if I'm doing family stuff. You know, I use the app on my phone called Clips, and it does just that. It takes little short clips of video, and you can edit it right there. And it's actually a great tool for Facebook for your private practice, because it will transcribe what you're saying. Then you can go and edit the transcription, the words of the transcription. Because Facebook, you know, all the videos come up silent, but the transcribing of the video is going to be helpful. So that app actually does that, transcribes your words that you're saying into words on the screen. So, but for family videos, I'll use the Clips app, but I also have a GoPro. I think I got it back here. It's actually not a GoPro. I had a GoPro and lost it. This is called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's, you know, it's the size of a GoPro, but it's got a screen on the back. This one will shoot 4K video. I can see Tony salivating. Tony's got a GoPro. He's probably got a few of them. But I'll just set that up when I'm doing family videos, because I was telling my VA, when you get 20 years down the road, I've got a 20-year-old. When my teenagers and my 20-year-olds watch the video of them when they were young, they want to see the whole event from beginning to end. So think about that. I just shoot beginning to end video, then I have all that raw video, dump it on a hard drive or upload it to Dropbox or whatever, and then years down the road, you can edit it if you want, but then you can watch that whole video. And at the same time, I'm shooting little Clips apps. Get one of these for your phone. You got one of these, Tony? There's Steal the Show. Thank you, Tony. You got one of these, Tony? I bet you got one of these, don't you? I mean, look at that. You could bend it, and then your phone just drops right in here. I'm going to show you here. It's really easier than what it looks. So you can put your phone in there, and I have a little lapel mic. I don't know if you can see it. And the lapel mic goes in there. You got to make good sound for your videos, unless you got a loud voice, or you're fairly close to the camera. That just wraps around anything. So that's a nice feature for your phone. Everybody's got a phone. Don't overcomplicate it with something. Tony has that. He has a tripod selfie stick too. I got one somewhere. Who knows? But my laptop camera's on the tripod right now. Tony's got all that. You got to check out Tony's videos on his website. Put your website in there, Tony, because I want people to check out your videos that you're doing, and he's got some cool stuff going over there. But don't overcomplicate it. I was telling my VA, don't let great get in the way of good, because I was explaining to him with my Academy of Private Practice videos, I wanted them perfect, which they look really good, but it took me forever to finish those. Whereas videos that I do now, I'm like, let's just get this done. Not that I want to have a video that's, substandard, but a lot of times I get perfection in the way. I overcomplicate it. So Tony put his website over there. So check out his videos. And you'll see that Tony, he does the same thing. He's shooting with his phone. He might shoot with a GoPro also, but he's not overcomplicating it. Real short videos that explain to the point, and just maybe a little bit of light editing. That Clips app is super helpful for that. You can edit it, but if you can shoot it in one take, don't edit it. Don't think it has to be perfect. It just has to be good. make your sound good, get you a lapel mic, and get you a tripod stand, and shoot the video. Just make it short and sweet. All right. I think I'm going to end this with that. I don't think I have anything else I want to cover. The other point I did make with videos, he's not comfortable with his face being on the video. It's painful for him to watch himself. But I told him, I said, your brain gets very good at doing what it does a lot of. You shouldn't be comfortable in front of a camera because then you might get a little vain. You should be a little, I'm uncomfortable right here on the camera. I'm watching myself. So another thing is, I said, turn the phone around. Don't watch yourself actually shoot the video. But also make it a point, if shooting video is something that you want to do, done is better than perfect. Yes. If video is something you want to do it every day. Just 5 minutes. Shoot a little short video. Whether you use the video or not, do it every day, and you're going to get very good at it. I mean, I look at some of the stuff that I created when I first started. It's horrible. It's just, I can't even watch it. It's so painful. But you're going to get better at it. And if you want to do presentations, jump on Facebook Live here. It doesn't matter if anybody watches. I didn't think anybody would show up tonight, but y'all are here. So this is great. But do it. Get a lot of practice. I mean, you can set up a little bit of an outline, or you can just riff. You can just go. A lot of times I'll just have sticky notes. I always have sticky notes. One year, my therapist gave me a sticky note belt. So it was cool to have, I don't know if you've ever done any construction or whatever, but they have nail belts. You tie it around and you put your nails in there, and they put a bunch of these in one of those nail belts. I use these all the stinking time. So I love sticky notes. So, all right. I think sometimes I go off on tangents, which is kind of cool about Facebook Live. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? You just have to do it. You have to get on here and do it. All right. Does anybody have any questions about anything? If you do, now or later, if you're watching this at a later time, put a comment down below. I'll try to do these more often. But I think I'm going to go and eat my dinner. What'd y'all have for dinner? I'm going to have some potatoes and salad. All right. I'll post maybe next week. We'll do another live, and I'll just kind of post it same day, probably about the same time. So if y'all have anything between now and then, be sure to let me know. Thanks, Tony, for showing up, for sharing. Appreciate you, my man. Thanks for the tips. You're welcome, Fernando. Thanks for watching. This is cool. I love Facebook Live. So don't be shy. All right, I'm going to end it, guys. We'll see you later. Godspeed.